Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. Good evening, board. It's my privilege to welcome everybody to the organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees. It's January 4th at 6 p.m. The first item on the organizational meeting agenda is the appointment of a Pro-Tem secretary who would conduct an election of the president and vice president of the board for 2022.
I would motion that we appoint Pro-Tem Secretary of the Fiscal Officer, Mr. Jeff Baker.
I second.
So I have a point of inquiry here. Do we need to first take attendance to establish we have a quorum before we actually take a vote?
If you can, if you want, but I think it's
Okay. All right. Just making sure, sorry.
Mr. Wallert,
Yay.
Ms. Ulrich,
Yay.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Very good.
Jeff, could I take a moment? I'd like to say something about the township.
Yes.
3 years ago, January 4th fell on a Friday.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that's happened in many years here happened that evening. Our Officer Dale Woods was in a what ended up becoming a fatal accident. And I would just ask that the board and those in the audience we could have a moment of silence for Dale and his family. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, board. Are there any nominations for president of the Board of Trustees?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Matt Wallert to be president of the Board of Trustees for 2022.
I second.
Are there any other nominations for?
Not from me.
Not for me.
Not for me.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Ms. Ulrich,
Aye.
Mr. Wallert.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, board. Are there any nominations for vice president of the Board of Trustees?
I'll nominate Dan Unger.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations?
Not from me.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. Mr. Wallert,
Aye.
Ms. Ulrich,
Aye.
Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Thank you, board.
So I guess at this point, Matt would take over the meeting.
I'm moving my hot seat here.
There's a lot of stuff here, right?
Yes, sir.
Switch your name tag so nobody gets confused.
So I get everything in order here. Thank you very much for your confidence. I appreciate it, and we'll do everything I can to do a good job. All right, we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we remain standing, Mr. Unger already mentioned the January 4th of 3 years ago in Officer Dale Woods. If we could just take a moment of silence to think about the year ahead and those that are sacrificing every day to keep us safe. Thank you. All right, Mr. Mills,
Yes, sir.
consent item.
Okay, the first item is a consent item this evening, and it is a recommendation to hire Mr. David Miller for the position of Director of Development in the Development Department. The wage for this job is $40.87 per hour for 40 hours per per week of work. Contingent upon board approval, he'd be eligible to begin work January 5th, 2022.
I motion that we would approve the consent item, which is hire the Director of Development, Mr. David Miller.
I second.
So we have a motion by Unger, second by Ulrich, in order to hire as Director of Development, Mr. David Miller. Any discussion?
Good luck. I see Mr. Miller's in the audience this evening.
Nice to see a face.
I'll also give you my wishes of good luck and thank you for deciding to serve. Are there any other comments?
Not from me.
Okay, we're ready for the question. If the fiscal officer will please call the roll.
Ms. Ulrich?
Here.
Mr. Wallert?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Baker, I got a little bit of confusion here. So according to procedurally, we do have to do things alphabetically because we have adopted Robert's Rules of Order, and it's an alphabetical vote. I know that there was some discussion about moving that around, but according to the Robert's Rules, unless anyone else has any other comments with regard to that.
I'm fine with either. When we talked about that at our December meeting, because Kathy comes, LMN, because Kathy comes before me, if you want to have her vote first on everything, that's fine. I think it would work to have it rotate, but whatever the pleasure of the president is, so.
I mean, I don't say that I disagree with you on that, but I think that we need to maintain Robert's Rules of Order when it comes to this.
You're the president.
All right, organizational items.
Very good. Thank you, board. First item of organizational business we have this evening is a motion to establish rules of procedure for the trustee meeting. The rules of procedure document is a tool that we use to formalize the way that the board intends to conduct its business during the Board of Trustee meetings. This item was introduced for a first reading at the January 2nd, 2020 special organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees. That was last year's 2 years ago organizational meeting. It was further modified on July 13th, 2021. Given the election of a new trustee, this item is being brought forward as part of the organizational meeting for discussion and to consider any potential changes to the rules.
I want to know why there's no public comments about this instead of...
I'm sorry, there's not a public comment this evening because it's an organizational meeting. Are there any motions at this time? I will motion to establish rules of procedure for the trustee meeting as provided. Are there any seconds?
I'll second.
Discussion.
I'll ask our counsel, is it prudent to renew these orders? Are they legally tested?
These are the same ones that were in place, so.
These are the amended as of June of 2021.
Exactly. As long as, yeah, so
I read them.
I've got no issues with
We're
those.
good.
As long as they accept it.
Okay.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay, so a yes vote is in favor of the motion to establish the rules of procedure, and a no vote is to not establish. The fiscal officer will call the roll.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yay.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wallert?
Yes.
Very good. The next item is a resolution authorizing the advance of funds in the Community Development Block Grant Fund. In our 2022 strategic plan and budget, the Board of Trustees appropriated Community Development Block Grant funds for the following projects: $55,000 for sidewalk maintenance projects, $20,000 for the Grossbeck Strategic Investment Plan, $10,000 for the Emergency Home Repairs Program, $30,000 for acquisition and demolition of blighted properties. Hamilton County awards CDBG funding to the township, and it recently changed the method by which it administers CDBG. In the past, township would submit invoices to the county, who would then pay them, but now the township must incur the expense and be reimbursed. So this resolution authorizes staff to advance $115,000 from the general fund to fund 2908 CDBG fund. Once the township is reimbursed, staff will receipt funds back into Fund 2908 and then repay that advance to the general fund. So essentially, we're taking $115,000 from general fund, moving it to CDBG fund. We will incur expenses, get reimbursed, and move that back to the general fund.
I motion that we would,
Ma'am, you're out of order.
I motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the advance of funds for the Community Development Block Grant Program.
I second.
Motion by Unger, second by Orich to authorize the advance of funds for CDBG. Any other comments?
Not for me.
The fiscal officer will now call the roll.
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Board. The next item is similar. It's a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds. Our strategic plan and budget calls for the following transfers out of the general fund. $933,785.38 to the Park Fund. That's Fund 2911. $230,244.70 to the Zoning Fund. That's Fund 2181. And $13,767.59 to the Community Center Fund. That's Fund 2912. Recommendation is to approve.
I motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the transfer of township monies to other township funds.
Motion by Unger, any seconds?
I'll second. Yes.
Second by Ulrich.
And
Any discussion?
as we discussed earlier, that is so those divisions of our local government can operate. So they need that money.
That's exactly right. So those funds don't generate enough revenue on their own to support the expenses, and so they are subsidized by the general fund. That's parks, our zoning function, and the other one.
Community Center Fund,
Thank you. Yep,
which was $13,767.59.
that's right.
No other comments from me.
Any other comments? Ma'am, I'm not going to tell you again, you're out of order. You're out of order. There's no public comment for this. These are merely procedural things that we have to do. And if you're going to continue to talk, I'm going to have to ask you to go. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to authorize the purchase of capital equipment and vehicles according to the Schedule A that was provided in the trustee agenda packet. Each year, the township adopts appropriations, as we did in December. They include a number of capital items. So in conjunction with these appropriations and the township strategic plan and budget, it's recommended that the attached list of capital items be approved by the Board of Trustees. Subsequent to this motion, if it's successful, the staff will work with vendors to secure quotes and issue purchase orders for these items. Consistent with all large purchase orders, these purchase orders will need to be authorized and approved by 2 of the 3 trustees prior to purchase. All purchases will not exceed the amount listed in the attachment. If quotes are obtained and the total purchase price would exceed the amount listed, then a new amount would have to come forward on a future agenda prior to the purchase. So recommendation is to approve.
Are there any motions?
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
I am not familiar with $100,000 for a solar project.
Sure. Yeah. So the idea here is well, Mr. Waller, did you?
Yes, so I think it would be best, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion now
Okay.
On this.
And I'll second it to get it to the floor.
Okay, my motion would be an amended motion on the motion to authorize the purchase of capital equipment vehicles according to the attached Schedule A, with the elimination of the $100,000 for solar fund, and have that tabled for a administrator presentation.
Sure. And I think what you're saying, Mr. Waller, is that you would like for me to make a larger presentation on the solar project so that everybody understands that project a little bit better before voting.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That might.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
So then I've made an amended motion. Is there a second on that amended motion?
I will second your amended motion.
Okay, now discussion for and against?
That's the same thought that I had when I saw that.
Okay. I just didn't want to be out of line.
Great.
And I think I mentioned that to you a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Okay, are there any other comments? All right, seeing none, Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to approve the 2022 regular meeting dates for the Board of Trustees and to establish rules for special meetings. The recommendation is to adopt such a motion. The regular meeting schedule of the Board of Trustees is similar to last year and frankly, most of the years in the last decade, with one regular meeting in January, February, March, November and December, and 2 regular meetings in April, May, June, July, August, September, and October. Those regular meetings, when we have just one a month, would be on the second Tuesday. When we have 2 a month, they'd be on the second and fourth Tuesday. Those meetings the regular session would begin at 7 with an executive session typically scheduled at 6 p.m. This motion also holds that special meetings would be held as necessary and would be noticed 24 hours prior to the start of the meeting. This notice will be sent to news media, specifically the Cincinnati Enquirer. Recommendation is to approve.
I motion that we approve the 2022 meeting dates for the Colerain Township Board of Trustees as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
No.
Ms. Orr, any
No,
discussion?
no.
I'll just point out that I know a number of times we've had to change these on the fly. So these dates, if needed and if given an advance notice, and then we notify the public and notify the news media if something comes up, if we need to add a meeting or postpone a meeting. So that does happen and can happen. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to approve the continuation of employment and payment of part-time employees at their current rates. This is an annual motion that gets made. Part-time employees need to have the trustees continue their employment each year at their current rates. So the recommendation is to adopt that motion.
I motion that we approve the continuation of employment and payment of part-time employees at the current rates.
I second.
Any discussion?
Not from me.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to appoint our new Director of Development, Mr. David Miller, as our representative, and Mr. Jeff Weckbach as the alternate representative to the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments Intermodal Coordinating Committee. This is a committee that provides general technical advice to the Executive Committee and Board of Directors of the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments. They review and comment on technical issues associated with studies and recommended plans throughout the region. We've had a consistent presence on this Intermodal Coordinating Committee, and Mr. Miller is recommended to be the primary representative for the township. Recommendation is to approve.
I motion that we appoint David Miller as representative and Jeff Weckbach as the alternate to the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments Intermodal Coordinating Committee.
I second.
Any comments?
Not from me.
No.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to sign purchase orders equal to or less than $10,000. State law allows Township Trustees to delegate the authority to sign purchase orders with a value equal to or less than $10,000 to the Township Administrator so the business can be conducted efficiently. In 2021, the Board of Trustees chose to delegate their authority to sign purchase orders with a value equal to or less than $2,500. It's worth noting that last year, by resolution, the Township authorized the Administrator to execute contracts at the amount of $10,000 or less. So that creates a situation in which the administrator can execute a contract committing the township to pay, but then would not be able to sign the purchase order if it's over $2,500 but less than $10,000. So our recommendation is to align those two, and recommendation is to approve.
Any motions?
Not from me.
Not for me.
Okay, that actually can then be brought back. It fails, but
Well, so if you don't take any action, the administrator doesn't have the authority to sign any purchase orders. So would you like to establish a different level?
yeah, so at this point, I'd like to amend the motion and return to the original amount of $2,500.
I will second Matt's motion.
Discussion?
I think 2,500 is a good amount. That is what we have supported in the past. And, you know, Jeff, we have given you wide latitude to hire people, to fire them, to select vendors, to perform evaluations on employees, and you know, go out and negotiate the big things like health insurance and that. this gives the trustees who are not here every day an opportunity to see what some of these smaller purchases are, and there have been a few of them that have raised my eyebrow over the years, and I could give you examples if you like, but they're things I would have never known about had the threshold been $10,000. And I realize there's other local governments that do that, but not all of them are in the stellar financial condition that we are in, and I think part of that is because our trustees have always had the opportunity to look at anything over $2,500. I don't mean to cause you any delays in any purchases. I'm up here once or twice a week to sign stuff in the basket. More importantly, I don't want to take that away from future trustees, because I think once this change is made, whoever's coming along next in the next 2, 4, 6 years, that won't be there for them to help keep this township in stellar financial condition. And finally, it gives me a chance to really know what's going on in the township without any micromanaging. It's just anything over 2,500 I would like to have a look at. So, and last thing is, this is a 56-page insert that comes in my favorite newspaper, which is the Cincinnati Court Index. This is published twice a year. It is 56 pages of our fellow citizens who could not afford to pay their property taxes in 2020, because I think you get a year drag, but once you're over a year late, you go into default. And it's sad and it's tragic, and some of these folks, and it's very small print for those who've never seen it before, but the auditor's required to publish it twice a year, and these folks, I feel tough for them, and that's why I want to keep this where the trustees can at least put a second and third set of eyes on these things. So that's the reason that I support 2,500. So
I understand that. Now, do keep in mind that as you mentioned, that means that we will need you guys to be in here at least once a week to sign those.
getting paid for this job, and we can all stop by because there's mail in our mailboxes and the other things too. So, go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead. So I realize that it presents an inconvenience. I realize that it presents things that aren't quite parallel. But I guess I'm kind of with Mr. Unger in that I kind of want my thumb on the pulse with that. And I do think it's an additional check and balance. And that's not at all a statement about administration now or in the past or even in the future. It's just about the separation of powers and checks and balances, and that's why I support the 2,500 number. Maybe next year it might be a different situation, but that's where I'm at today.
After a year, I'd like to see
Yeah.
if we have to up that.
That
So,
sounds good. Thanks.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich,
yes.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution authorizing the expenditure of public monies for coffee, meals, refreshments, and other amenities. So the Auditor of State provides guidance on the use of public monies for meals, coffee, and other refreshments as part of community events. This resolution would authorize the expenditure of township monies for the purpose of the events listed in the resolution. And specifically, what we're talking about are a meal celebrating veterans, meetings of the Board of Trustees where water is provided to the trustees, regular training in the training classroom downstairs, Township Academy, Employee Appreciation Luncheon, Independence Day fireworks, Recycle Day, Career Day, and the Community Give Back Day. So the recommendation is to adopt this resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the expenditure of public monies for coffee, meals, refreshments, and other amenities.
I second.
Discussion.
Yes. I believe for the past years, the township had always bought that, but as you mentioned, in our state audit, that was one of the recommendations that we actually approved that. And, I talked to Mr. Weckbach about that last week, and I said, well, how much was spent on that in 21? I realized the year's just been over for a week, but I think you came back with a number of about $2,500 or so? Right, so because Jeff's not at a mic, he confirmed that it was about $2,500. And while I bring my own water to these meetings, we do have a lot of volunteers and folks that show up for Recycle Day and folks that do other things for the township, and we do provide water and coffee and other small amenities. It's not some big giant amount, although $2,500 is a lot of money, but this way we're we're confirming as a board that we have approved to do that. And in fact, I think that was a result of somebody questioning or sending a question to the state auditor of why don't we do that? So now we're doing that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't have any other comments.
Again, I object.
Ma'am?
I object.
Yeah, but ma'am, this is not, ma'am, this is not for open comment. Ma'am, it's not for open comment, ma'am. Any other comments? Ma'am?
I don't have any other comments, Matt. Did you have any, Kathy?
No.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion adopting the 2022 pay schedule. Recommendation is to adopt this pay schedule. It's a typical pay schedule, unlike 2 years ago where there were 27 pays, oddly. This year there are the normal 26 pays in the year. Recommendations to approve.
I motion that we would approve the 2022 pay schedule.
I second.
Any discussion?
As a matter of fact, there is. I recall last year, we went over this, and you had divided the paychecks up into 27 units, and then this year there's 26. So thank you for...
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Where does the time go when we're up here arguing about such things? But thank you for correcting that and
Oh, it's not me, it's the calendar, and there will be a time in about
formalizing that.
7
Right.
years,
So
yeah.
everybody's annual salary is divided by, to our employees, your annual salary is divided into 26
That's right, bi-weekly.
paychecks.
Yeah.
So, no other comments.
Seeing no other comments, Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Very good, Board. The last item of organizational business this evening is a motion to appoint the township member of the Board of Directors of the Colerain Township City of Cheviot Joint Economic Development District Number 1. Recommendation is to adopt this motion, which would appoint Trustee Matt Wallert to the Board of Directors of the JED District. He would serve as the township member in a 4-year term, which would expire December 31st, 2025. On January 2nd, 2020, Mr. Wallert was appointed to fill the unexpired term of then trustee Mr. Insko. That term ended just last week, December 31st, 2021. Recommendation is to approve.
I motion that we appoint Mr. Matt Wallert as the township member of the Board of Directors of Colerain Township to the, combined with the City of Cheviot Joint Economic Development District Number 1.
I second.
Discussion?
Matt, how'd your 2 years go?
2 years, 2 meetings.
That's right.
There you go. And those meetings were held here, I believe.
The second one was virtual, I believe.
Right, but,
Yeah.
and what that is they just sit down and formalize the amount from that, which I believe was somewhere in the 44,000 range, maybe,
Yeah,
or
something
something
like
like
that. It's an
that.
opportunity for us to all get together and make sure that it's working for all the parties involved, which would be City of Cheviot Township, and then in this case, it's the Liberty Nursing Home is where that JED district is. So they have a worker and an owner member.
Great, and thank you for your service to that, Matt.
Thank you.
Again, I object.
Thank you.
I don't have any other comments, Matt.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. I'm looking forward to a very productive year. Thanks.
Any motions?
I would motion that we adjourn the meeting at 6:29 PM on Tuesday, January 4th.
I second.
Discussion?
Not from me.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. We are adjourned at 6:29.